It is time to start analyzing COVID data. What I want you to do is in a search engine, go ahead and type in John Hopkins CSV COVID GitHub. It's a mouthful. So I know from previous research that John Hopkins University has been a center of the coronavirus data. When you are looking at any data, CSV files are generally the best way to, you could say, access raw data. CSV stands for comma separated value. And in particular, a lot of programmers and other people store their, you could say, programming files, including data files, on GitHub. So if you search that, you should see what I have highlighted here, something like this: novel coronavirus COVID-19 cases provided by JHUCSSE. No, CSSE here is Center for System Science and Engineering. So in the early days of COVID, John Hopkins University, I can tell you, I know they would gather data from a lot of places and clean it. And then, a lot of others could get it from there. So this is a central hub for data for COVID. Okay, go ahead and click on that. And then when you do, you should see something that looks like this. So this is now a GitHub page. And again, GitHub is where a lot of programming is it's stored on GitHub. Okay, and in particular, I want you to look at, what do you think you would click on, right? We're looking for data, so COVID-19 data. Okay, so click there. And then you see there are several different folders here. And depending on what we do in this class, we could focus actually on all of them, different ones. And even, there may be other data sets that we actually look at. But for now, note there are what's called daily reports US, and a time series. Okay, let's just click on the first one, daily reports, and let's see what we get. Okay, what we have here are, you can see these are CSV files, and they're from different days. Okay, you can also see here where things were updated, it looks like 13 hours ago. And the idea is that, you probably want to get the most recent day, right? So I'm recording this video in the evening of Tuesday, October 19th. I don't know for sure if the Tuesday, October 19th data has been loaded, but I can actually check. So I can scroll down here, and it's a lot to scroll through. And what's nice about this too is you'll see the way the data files are stored. You're not going to have to do this actually again. You can just change it to the appropriate day. So here you see 10/18/2021 is here, and 10/19 is not. Now, 10/19/2020, but we're in the year 2021. It's cool too because you can actually get it from any day. So let's just say I was doing the day before. Okay, I'll show you why in a moment. So go ahead and click. You really click on any file because I'm going to show you how to change it. And so here is the, again, whether you pick 10/18, 10/17, or any date, doesn't matter. We're all going to do, well, I'm going to do 10/18. You should be doing whatever the most recent date is, but I'm going to show you how to change it. So really what you're just clicking on a date, and then you have this file, but it's actually not what you want to load into Colab. You need raw. There are not a lot of hyperlinked data files that work. The standard is to download it to your local machine. That takes an extra step in Colab. But uncluttered, there are hyperlinks that work, and raw GitHub CSV files are one of them. So this will work. Okay, so click on the URL. All right, Command C. Now, I want you to open up a new Colab notebook. Okay, so just type in colab.research.google.com. That's COLAB. And you may click on the new notebook option in blue. If you do not see that for any reason, behind this you should see a file new notebook option. And this is a great, behind this is a great general overview of Colab. I encourage you to check it out. Okay, either way, you're going to a new notebook. And then we're going to call this new notebook something. And, you just want to, we can change the title, but for now, let's call it maybe COVID data. You could even put the date, right? My date is 10/19. I'm going to say first look. All right. And then again, I don't know, down the road, you'll have different dates. What you call it's not important. Here's what is important. Go into the coding cell and put in URL equals and then a quotation mark. Okay. Colab is going to close the quotation mark for you, which is nice. And what we're doing here is we're basically assigning what's called a string to the variable URL. Think of a variable just like X. We're calling it URL because it's like a website. And then I put Command V. I put it inside. Now here's what I want to show you. Look at this carefully. These are labeled appropriately. So see how it says 1017 at the end? Well, you can just change it, okay? That's my point. So it's a great way of, when files are properly organized, right? And I have done this before, changing the date does give you the newest one. You're probably looking at this some days ahead of me, So if it's, yesterday was like 10/27 for you, put in 10/27. Okay, if I put in something that doesn't exist, it won't work. So you could even try it, like I could try 10/19, if I didn't know, then maybe it would work and maybe it wouldn't. Okay, next you want to go ahead and we want to get this data, okay? That's a link. We don't have it, okay? The variable is a string, okay? So like URL, it's just that hyperlink. So what we need to do is convert that into data that we can use. And we're going to use pandas library to do that. So what I want you to do is to import pandas as PD. Press Shift Enter to run that coding cell. So pandas is Python's data analytics library. Okay, and that's what we're going to use to access the data. Right? And the idea is the following. You need to import it because it's a specialized library. Most people who use Python don't actually use pandas. They're using other stuff. So a lot of people are though, but the point is to keep things fast. Python separates, libraries, right? So you're not overloaded with stuff that you don't need, right? So to use it, you just type in PD now. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is actually read in the file. And I want to go ahead and be clear about the code since we have a lot of new coders here. And what I can do is put what are called comments. So if I put a hashtag, it turns green, and this is a comment. It's not code. It's me telling you. So assign COVID CSV file to variable URL. So what I'm trying to do there is explain in terse English what the code is doing. You can put that in. You don't have to, okay? I encourage you to do it unless it slows you down. Here we just import pandas library to analyze data. Okay. All right. And one other thing, if you get an error here, there's going to be errors. Okay. Let me just show you an example. Like let's say I misspelled pandas. Okay. And I run it. Well, it didn't work. Right. And if you look up here, it says no module name PANDS. So that's wrong. Something else. The error could say something different if URL, you could put whatever you want there because you're naming that variable. But this has to be in quotes. Like let's say I don't put that quote there. Is that okay? We'll press Shift Enter and find out. No, it says invalid syntax. And so that's often what you'll see too for a typo. So just look carefully and try to make sure that your code matches mine. I'm kind of curious to check it. Like I saw that 19 doesn't exist. So what happens now if I run it? See, it works, but it's not going to load because, yeah, it's because it doesn't know. You'd find out in the next cell. Okay, so I'm going to keep something that I believe will work. All right, so how do we actually get the data? What we do now, we read in the CSV file, and it's done as follows. DF, that stands for data frame, equals, and it's PD dot. Okay, why am I doing this? Well, look. What I'm wanting to do is assign, I want to get the data, okay, and I want to be able to use it again and again. So I'm going to call the data df. But I've got to get it from the URL. So you've actually got to, it's called a read, okay? So type in read, R-E-A-D, and look at this. You see all of these cool read options for pandas. So it can read in Excel files, JSON files, HTML files, they have to be right to work. CSV has become kind of, I want to say the leader in data files. So you do read underscore CSV and then type in URL there. Okay. And note too that it's showing me, hey, you read CSV, this should be the file path. And I showed you how to do it using that URL style. There are other ways you could do it. If you download it to your local machine, you could just, you want to bring it into these folders. Maybe we can look at that another time. Okay, so that should let's say what that does. That reads in, I don't really like the read's already there, so whatever, reads in data file. I don't know, let's say stores data file as variable df maybe. Okay. And by the way, it's a data frame type. Okay, so it's a special type when you do read underscore CSV. So df is short for actually data frame. And then we want to see it. Okay. So show first 5 rows of data. The data frame is useful both for analyzing and viewing. So it's just going to look good. Now I'm going to pause for a moment because these 4 lines of code are done over, and I do them every time pretty much when I'm loading data, because I've got to get the data from somewhere. So with Colab, I have to try to get a link. To bring it in, I need pandas, so I got to import it. But the whole point of importing it is actually to do this, to then convert it into a data frame. And you always want to look at it because it just doesn't make sense not to look at it, because how do you know that it's actually what you expect? You know, you always want to look at it first. Okay, so let's run that. And this looks good. You may wonder what's NaN. Stands for not a number. It means null value. There's nothing there. Okay, these are missing entries. And, you know, it's always good to, like, when you first load your data, see, can you make sense of it? Well, countries, these make sense. It shows when it was updated. Note that even though it's from, say, the 1018 file is updated on the 19th, we get a latitude and longitude. That could be fun at some point. Confirmed, I'm going to assume that's confirmed COVID cases, 155,000 here. Deaths, again, we're assuming COVID deaths. Recovered and active are not, there are no values. A key incident rate. Now look, when you see rates, okay, the rates are usually out of some number. I don't know how many people that's out of, you know, I'm just not that well versed in COVID. We can find this information out, but like it's, you know, so maybe it's out of 100,000 people, right? 400 people have COVID or something like that. And so they're telling us how many out of that number. And so to compare, you know, the number of COVID cases in a country, I would want to look at incident rate, because confirmed cases, it just makes sense that bigger countries are going to have more confirmed cases, but incident rate really tells you kind of how your country is doing compared to other countries. Okay. And same with case fatality, although this is called a ratio. So again, we've got this deaths column and we've got the ratio column. Okay. And I prefer looking at the rates and the ratios. I can tell you in early COVID data days, this stuff was not there. But the point is, when you're dealing with data on your own, you can put it there. Okay. All right. So let me just show you a couple of things that are standard to do with data. Okay, so well, what do you do with it? Well, you can do df.info. Okay. Got to have parentheses. You open it, it'll close it. And press Shift Enter. And it just gives you like general information. It shows you 4,005 entries. That means rows. Okay. It's telling you their index 0 to 4,004 should be standard, because in computer science, you always start counting with 0. And then this can be helpful depending on what you want to do. Okay. It's not really that important for us right now, but note that it's telling us each of the column names, tells us how many non-null values. So remember at the top how FIPS, which I don't know what that is, it's all said NaN. Well, eventually they have stuff to fill in. Whereas like recovered and active, see that 0 non-null? That means they're all null values. They have no information on that at this point. One other thing I'll just quickly mention is the data type. Floats and ints are numbers, and objects are usually strings, meaning not numbers. And that can be important too. Right? Like if you want to do a scatter plot, you're graphing numbers, not quote objects. Okay, so what else can we do? You can do df.describe. Okay. Let's see what it does. Put it in, press Shift Enter, and look at this. df.describe, you get the descriptive statistics of each of the columns, right? We've got the count, meaning number of rows that are being counted, right? The null values, they're not counting those because they have nothing to contribute. The mean value, standard deviation, minimum, first quartile, median, third quartile, and maximum. And so I like to say what this is because, like, why describe? Descriptive statistics. Show descriptive statistics of data frame. Okay, that's kind of cool. And this is just general info, let's say. Show general info of data frame. So, you start to get a sense about the columns. Well, let me show you how to access a column here. So, access column, we're going to be doing this often. Well, let's pick one. So if you put in df and then bracket, okay, and then quote. Okay. So it's you'll get used to it. Okay, that's the syntax. And then you can see Colab is showing, hey, one of these, because these are in fact the columns. And let's look at incident rate. That's one I'm interested in right now. So I click on it. And let's see what happens if I press Shift Enter. Right, so this accesses the column, and which column in particular? Well, the one called incident rate. And when I press Shift Enter, you can see it doesn't show all the rows, thankfully, because they're over 4,000. It shows just the first 5 and the last 5. So another thing you can do then, you can, like that dot describe, it doesn't just work for the whole data frame, it also works for individual columns. So let's show the descriptive statistics for this column, okay? So show descriptive stats for df incident rate. And so again, just put in the column name, df quote, incident rate. Now note if I start typing, it can start to narrow it down. And once you see it highlighted, then you can just press enter. And again, I can do dot describe. And it does show that as an option. It doesn't always in Colab. You got to have the parentheses too. Okay, if you leave out the parentheses, I think it'll still work, but it might not look right. You may have seen that before already. So if yours looks very different than mine, consider putting parentheses in. If I go ahead and put the parentheses in, I get this. I get the descriptive statistics, right? So let's just look at it for a moment. So the mean incident rate is 12,700. Standard deviation of 5,200. Minimum is 0. We don't know if... look, it's every country. So there's some countries with no cases. None reported, right? We don't know if that's none. The median, 13,601, note is kind of close to the mean. The quartiles seem kind of representative, so it's not that very skewed. Although, that is a big max. And one thing that we can do quickly is, look, let me just put it like this. When looking at data and trying to understand it, right, we're trying to make sense of it. A good strategy is to ask questions, right? So I want to tell you my questions that I have when I look at this. I want to know which countries have the best and worst incident rates. Okay. And so if that's the question, then we translate it to, so how do I do that with code? And what you'll find is that some questions will be harder than others to answer with code, but you can answer anything that's computable with code. So For this one, it's actually pretty straightforward. So let's say show, I forget which order it goes in. So show, well, let's just pick one. Show countries with, I'm picking the default here, with best incident rates. Okay. So what we do, we can do df. Let me show you one way to do it. There are a couple ways you can do. So let's just do the whole data frame. df.sort values. Okay, you sort values, and then you got to put a parentheses in there, right? Because kind of like when you're doing the parentheses, it's like you're running a function. Okay, and you put in brackets and inside of quotes, then the name of the column, which I wanted incident rate. And I think this will do it. Okay. So go ahead and try to get that in there and let's see what happens. Press Shift Enter. This looks good. So look what we have at the top. Okay. We have, oh, this is interesting. So this reveals something about the data, right? That it looks like these are split into regions, right? Because note that Alaska is not for the whole U.S. I thought it was by country. And like even like China, they're looking at Tibet and Shanghai. So if I scroll over to the far right, and then this is interesting. Look, it's because it's not just Alaska, it's actually some particular areas in Alaska. Okay. So this isn't what I was expecting. And, this is what happens when you start looking at data. You start to like learn from it and learn what you can do to kind of, get more out of it. So, if you want to do it by country, it's clear we need to do something a little extra, and we're going to do it. Because I want to see it by country, right? This is the thing. You don't want to limit yourself to like first goes through with data. Like, oh, well, I guess this is how it is. No, you want to say, okay, I want to like do it by country. So can I do it by country? And yes, you can. Okay. You absolutely can. But this actually gave us both. So before looking at that, note that it also, like you see all the dots, and then it's actually got the bottom cases. And it looks like somewhere in the United Kingdom. Wait, did it do it in order? Because these are alphabetical. I'm skeptical. So if we scroll over to the incident rate, which one is the incident rate column? Yeah, it's got NaN. So these are unassigned. So we have an issue. Okay. So let us fix the issue. And I'm going to introduce a big topic, and it's called a group by. So we've revealed from this little sort values that let me show you something. Well, let me just go with what I'm going to. Sorry, I have conflicting thoughts about like I want to do more of sort values, but let's change the data frame. So do you see how clearly they're going to be different like rows for different countries? So here's an idea of a group by. Let's just take all of the U.S. Countries and put them together. And U.S. states. When we do that, everything that's going to have U.S. will be grouped together. Okay, and then we'll be looking at the U.S. as a whole. So same thing with China, same thing with all country regions. Okay, so the question then becomes this. Okay, so if I take all the U.S. states and I group them together, meaning I'm going to transform them into one row that's with US, what do I do with the different values, right? Confirmed, think about it, and incident rate. The incident rate's actually good. It would depend on, this is already getting surprisingly technical because let's just do it with confirmed. Okay, I think that's going to be a little easier to start with. So let's just switch it to confirmed. Okay, and then we'll come back to incident rate. So let me just make a note here that, well, let me show you actually a proper way to make a note. After you see data, you can respond to it by adding a text cell. Okay. And like I'll just say here, data not organized by country. We can fix this with a group by. Let's look at confirmed cases first. So what am I doing here? I'm just making notes. Okay, these are things I just said. And the idea, note this is a text cell, and text cell is you get from plus text. Okay, that's how I got that. And you just start typing. This is not Python code. This is just like, I don't know, it's just like some weird hybrid HTML thing. If I press Shift Enter to run it, it's just, info. And it's meant to be reflective of what's above it. And this is one of the reasons why notebooks are actually used in data science, because the data is not enough. You need to comment on it. Okay, so let's look at the confirmed cases. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to see who's got the most confirmed cases. Okay, and I'm going to do it as follows. Instead of sorting by incident rate, sort by confirmed. And what we're going to do then is something called ascending. See that? Ascending equals. And we're going to set it equal to false. See, it's showing us the default here is true, but I'm going to set it to false. Okay. And when I do that, instead of starting with 0, it's going to start with the most. Okay, the highest numbers. Okay, so show most confirmed cases. Now we're looking at the world here, so this should be a little interesting. And it looks like we've got Turkey, United Kingdom, France, India. Now, when you look at the province state, note that like the United Kingdom is England. It's unclear if Turkey and France, like, are these just all of Turkey and France, whereas is India split into Maharashtra, I guess, is an area. Sorry for the mispronunciation there. You can see that the number of confirmed cases we are looking at, if you pull out 3s, over 7 million. Okay, it's a lot. So how can I redress this issue of like it looks like some places are split and some aren't? Well, it's again, we want to use the group by, right? So US, it's done by region, and so it's like all split up. And so what we can do is we can simply add up all the confirmed cases. So we're going to do something called a group by. Okay, it's a big topic in data analytics, you could say. And it happens when you have repeats of something. Like here we've got repeats of countries. And we're going to have confirmed cases. Like I saw some US ones down here. Well, these had zeros, right? But we know a lot of the US states have a lot. And so I can say group by country region and sum everything. It's going to add everything up. And so it'll add confirmed, it'll add deaths. Okay. But you have to pick an operation, because if you group by it, right, just imagine 2 US states. They both have confirmed cases, deaths, they have their own numbers. You don't know what numbers to pick. So you've got to tell it what to do to the numbers. And we're going to sum them. Okay. Now, this will be a little fun, because we are now doing something that I don't know by heart. And I typically will search it. I might be able to pull it off, though. Sometimes once you know what you're doing, if I type in df dot, let's see if group by, there's group by. Okay, maybe I can pull it off. Let's see. The syntax is a little weird, honestly. But if you kind of know what you're looking for, this is when coding can start to get fun. And you start to, oh, is it df.groupby? Okay, it is. And then inside of the parentheses, you do want to group by something. So here it says by equals. And, like with that type of a syntax, you want to do something like, we'll just keep it by equals. I think we can just put in the column, and we want country See, sometimes it doesn't prompt it. What is it called? Country underscore region. Okay. And I will probably get this wrong, but then you've got to aggregate it somehow. So to do the aggregation, it might be dots. I'll just look it up for you guys, but it's fun. I'll just get an error. I don't think it's dot sum. I think you've got to aggregate it somehow. It could be dot sum though. I'm skeptical that that's going to work. I don't think this works. So we'll just watch. Did it work? Oh my gosh, maybe it did. I was not expecting it to work. How about that? Yeah. Now the rates, okay, the rates were also summed, and that doesn't work. That's why I wanted to look at confirmed first, because it is clear that the confirmed would work. All right. And okay, here's how we find out if it actually worked. We're going to check it by doing what we just did. So what we're going to do is we're going to reassign. Let's just say define new data frame, and we can call it something. So we won't call it DF, we'll call it something else. Maybe DF country. Sometimes I'll just keep a switch and reassign it as DF because I don't want to go back. In fact, yeah, let's just reassign it. Because what I'm so accustomed to using DF, I start to forget if I call it something else. Okay, so here we go. We are going to reassign DF to a group by with country using the sum of countries, you could say. Right, you're summing, like, look, you can't sum, like there's certain, you can only sum numbers, okay? So it's going to sum any number. All right, and then so all you can do to reassign it, see, this just shows that you've got to actually call it DF, okay? So this reassigns it. Okay, code runs top to bottom. So when I reassign this is the new DF. And this will be fun if this gets a little messy. Fun because we'll have to fix it. Maybe not fun for you. And then now we can try sort values by country, okay? Using the new DF, really. So we're basically doing this again. Same thing. Okay, it's just that DF has now been redefined. So let's see if this works. There's the bottom countries. Let's see who's on the top. No surprise, US is number 1, right? And India number 2, Brazil number 3. So this is what you've heard, right? And you know, we use this data set to figure it out. And furthermore, this is as of, for me, it's yesterday, October 18th. And again, I try to comma out like 3 at a time. So, you know, this reveals that it is in fact 45 million in the US, okay? 34 million in India, 21 million in Brazil, over 8 million in the United Kingdom, and almost 8 million in Russia, okay? Let me show you something else you can do. Let's just show top 10. Okay. It's kind of sad to call it top 10, right? Show 10 most, okay. Okay, what you can do after this is a lot of code at once, I know. It takes some getting used to. You put in this bracket, and then you put in like, this is standard slicing in Python. So it's like you're going from the 0th to the 10th, meaning row. And you can take out the 0. This just means start at the 0 and end at the 10th. So that'll give us the top 10. So I press Shift Enter, and because it's stopped, right? And I can see what else we got: Turkey, France, Iran, Argentina, Spain, as well as like the numbers. And this is kind of it's kind of a interesting, right? Because we can also compare deaths, you know, like is it pretty similar? I mean, you can look at them right here to get an idea. Like, I think the deaths are not that different, but it is, some countries are trading places. So there's that. And then I think what we need to do is compare the incident rates, but do note that we cannot do that right now because we simply summed the results. And you can't sum rates, right? I mean, you all know that, right? If like I'm giving a test and like one person gets a 90 and one person gets a 70, if I add them up, that's 160. Well, they didn't get 100, the class didn't get 160% on the test, right? So you could actually take the mean incident rate, though, that should work. Yeah, it should. But I reassigned DF, so we can always go back and fix it. All right, so I think I may pause. I mean, let's just do like, look, let me leave you something to do right now. So I just did it by confirm. So I didn't write it well. I wrote sort values by country. Let's just say show country, show top 10 most confirmed cases. It's by country because we already did it by country, so it doesn't really matter. But so can you do this? Can you use that to then show countries with 10 most deaths? Can we? Why don't you take a moment and see if you can do it? Okay. The idea with coding, right? Some of it, like, I mean, when you're just getting started, I'm saying just do this, right? And you're just doing it. But what's valuable is that the code will run top to bottom. And furthermore, the idea is, can you get the hang of how things are working then? So if you didn't finish and you want to on your own, you can pause the video and do it. Otherwise, let me just jump in and show you how I would do it. Well, this works. I'm just going to copy this and change the word confirmed to deaths, right? Because that's the name of the column. Was it death or deaths? I don't remember. I can just run the code and see if I get an error. Yeah, interesting. Colombia and Indonesia come in here. US is still number one. With, by the way, if you look at it, it's 725,000 people. So that's a lot. It's a lot of people. And you can do interesting stuff, by the way, with this. So, like, for instance, like, can we figure out how many people have died from COVID? Yes. Okay. We have the data right in front of us. So you can imagine, like, what you would do is you would sum the deaths column. Similar with confirmed cases, you would sum the confirmed columns. Well, this is where this gets really interesting. The reason why is because, I mean, maybe you could go online and get that information, but that would be like if someone's like regularly updating that. They're regularly updating this data. Sometimes people don't like it, but because it's not like a good thing, but it's interesting to know how many people globally. So let's try it. Show total number of deaths. And if we get the column DF, deaths, right? And again, so what dot means, okay, what does dot mean? Dot means like, what can I do with a column? Like we did dot describe, right? What else? Can I do dot sum? I say that because sometimes you can guess if like, it changed color, it could be a good thing. Let's see. There it is. And this is one of the reasons why I like doing this, because you can often like come up with significant numbers, because people like round numbers. We're about to hit 5 million deaths globally. Okay. And note that too, that tells us the percentage of the United States deaths. I won't do that, but you can easily get that for you. I want to see the total number of cases. Okay. Show total number of COVID cases. So if I do DF and then I want to put in here confirmed, dot sum. Wow. All right, so let's try to comma this out. See how I just highlight the middle three? So it's 241 million. And again, another big number coming up, which is 250 million. You know, this is called a global pandemic for a reason. That's a lot of people. Wow. And so you can also get the percentage then, right? You can look up things like, okay, well, what's the world population? You know, and you can divide that into it. And so you can start to get a lot of interesting numbers once you have it all in front of you.